Hello, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons Warriors of the Eternal Sun. Last episode, we finally got to go outside and do some adventuring. We headed to the Beastman encampment near the keep in the hopes of being able to parley with them. However, they tried to kill us on sight, and we were forced to slay them in self-defense, so that didn't go well. Then we did a little bit of exploring around the castle, went to the swamp to the southeast in the hope of seeing something interesting. We didn't encounter any interesting monsters, but that's probably for the best, because most of the interesting swamp monsters would kill a first level party. What we're going to do this episode is cross the bridge and start exploring the wider part of the valley, and make our way to a secret dungeon to do a little bit of level grinding before we begin advancing the story and go to the first story dungeon. One thing I'd like to do real quick before that is I think it would be fun to begin compiling a bit of a bestiary and review the stats of the monsters that we've encountered so far. Hopefully my memory is accurate and that these are the monsters that we have run into up to this point. So first we encountered a Beastman warrior in the dungeon, and we can see that assuming I picked the right stats and that they're accurate, that those guys have 4 to 19 hit points and can do 2 to 7 damage. If that is correct, then that's a pretty nasty enemy to put in the very beginning of the game, and we're fortunate that we were able to dispatch him fairly easily. And there was also a nearby giant rat in the next cell over. The stats for this, and by the way, I pulled these statistics out of the official hint book for the game. The statistics for the giant rat say that it has a small chance of carrying a disease, and that when it bites a player character, they may contract that disease. I'm not sure I've ever seen that happen, so I don't know if this information is accurate or not. If it is accurate, then probably is one of the areas where saving throws would come into play, and is one of the reasons that having a dwarf with better saving throw values and thus a higher chance to resist effects like that is a fairly useful thing. Then we encountered some tiny beastmen who have 1 to 4 hit points, which means they're very easily killed, and they're worth practically nothing for experience points. Now, I was unable to find statistics for specifically hairy beastmen in the hint book, so I just kind of assumed that the regular Beastman statistics are accurate or representative for the hairy Beastmen, since there wasn't actually an entry for them. And then I think we also ran into a few flying vipers while we were wandering around, and it says here that they can cause poison, which once again, you see that last sentence says that the victim has a chance to cut this damage in half. That again is a saving throw versus poison. Yet again, having a dwarf is useful because they're much more likely to resist those kind of effects than a standard fighter. Now, I actually find these statistics a little bit sus for a couple of reasons. One is, take a look, for example, at the damage value for the tiny beastman, 1 to 7. Remember, this game is based on Dungeons & Dragons. Every randomly generated value is supposed to come from a die roll. There is no 7-sided die. Odd-sided dice just don't exist as far as I know. And so there's no way to randomly generate a value from 1 to 7 with dice. 2 to 7 makes sense, because that can be a 6-sided die with a +1 modifier added to it. So 2 to 7 is perfectly reasonable. 1 to 7, however, isn't. Either the hint book has some incorrect data and the value is wrong, or the game designers just didn't bother to constrain the possible values to values that could be generated by dice rolls. It's one or the other. I actually am not sure what the correct answer to that particular quandary is. And here's another thing that is sus about these monster stats. So here's some here's some information from the official BX pen and paper rules. Monster hit dice are D8s. In other words, a monster has a certain quantity of hit dice, and you roll that many 8-sided dice to determine its hit points. You can also apply a modifier to a monster's hit die roll, like if it says +3, then you roll the monster's hit dice and then add an extra 3 hit points on top of that. And monsters can have 1/2 of a hit die, in which case you roll a d4 instead of a d8. And the official stats for a boar are that it has 3 hit dice. That 13 hit points after the 3 hit dice is just the average value that you would get from rolling 3d8. But the point is, because it doesn't say those are fractional hit dice or anything, that should be a 3d8 roll. So a boar should have from 3 to 24 hit points. However, the hint book says that boars have from 3 to 18 hit points, which is what you would get from rolling 3d6 rather than 3d8. Again, either the developers have some of their own stats in this game, so not everything conforms to official stats, or the hint book has some wrong data. And once again, I don't know what the correct answer is. Also, I don't really care that if the game doesn't use official data for everything. That's perfectly fine. That doesn't bother me at all. So I'm not saying that as though, oh, look at this stupid game not following the official pen and paper rules. Like, that's not a big deal. I just think it's an interesting curiosity pointing stuff out like this, because I'm an out of control Dungeons and Dragons nerd, so I think this kind of thing is interesting. Okay, so that was another little mechanical deep dive of the type that I said we'd be getting in this Let's Play. Now, let's actually do some adventuring again. And we're going to cross the bridge, do some exploring, find the secret dungeon I'm looking for, and do some leveling up. I may do some significant editing here and cut out portions of the journey if we go long distances without encountering anything and nothing much interesting happens. So we'll see. Alright, so here's the bridge. Now, when we cross the bridge, 2 of our characters are going to say that they're nervous about crossing the bridge. Draven and Lucia are worried about crossing the bridge. And this is the game's way of telling you that the monsters on the opposite side of the bridge are tougher. So you want to be prepared for danger when you cross. Although there's so little to investigate on our side of the bridge that you don't really have much of a choice other than to cross the bridge fairly soon, unless you want to spend forever grinding on weak monsters. So the way that the game chooses who says they're scared to cross the bridge, and as far as I know, there's no mechanical effect to this whatsoever. It's purely for flavor. But it should be the 2 characters, I think, with the lowest charismas. So Dimsdale has a charisma 15, Lucia's is 11, Grelden's is 17, and Draven's is 16. So it should have been Dimsdale and Lucia then, if it was really whoever had the lowest charisma value. So maybe that's not actually how it chooses who says that they're nervous about crossing the bridge. So that's interesting. If that's the case, I actually don't know exactly how it makes that choice. Also, the beautiful elf having the lowest charisma is absolute nonsense. I just wasn't even paying attention to any of the mental stats because they don't do anything in this game. But that just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. She should have one of the highest charisma values in the party, if not the highest, so that's very silly. But again, it doesn't actually mean anything. Here's a hill giant. This guy is tough. Facing him is kind of scary. Alright, get up there, Dimsdale, and let's hope you don't just get absolutely murdered. Alright, I think I have... Oh, right, I equipped Shield on Draven, and I have forgotten to even cast it. I'll go ahead and do that after this fight. Assuming we don't all die. Oh, this is not going well. Get in there and help Lucia. We are missing this guy like crazy. Luckily, we got initiative on him because we used a ranged attack, so we're getting a lot of turns before... Oh, Lord. He just threw a boulder at us, but he missed, thankfully. Come on, somebody kill this guy before he murders Dimsdale or Lucia. Nice work, Lucia. Man, Lucia's been a killing machine so far. Alright, let me go ahead and cast Shield on Draven before I forget. Where did our music go? There it is. Alright, now if we check his armor class value, we see that now the shield is active. His armor class is 4, which is very, very respectable. That's on par with our 2 frontliners. So shield is a good spell for making your mage harder to hit. Granted, you don't want your mage in the front where they're taking hits anyway. So you could make that argument to say that shield isn't that great, because if your mage is taking hits, you've done something wrong anyway. But you know, stuff can go wrong in combat. You can get flanked. So it's useful having some protection on your mage. There's a bear. A grizzly bear. So these guys are really tough. These are very dangerous enemies too. It is legitimately very dangerous across the bridge. So we definitely have a chance of getting killed to random encounters here. But so far it's going really well. It helps immensely. When you see the enemy coming, you launch a ranged attack so you get several turns before they get to act. If anything, it's almost too good, because you get to act so much before the enemy does. It can really trivialize a lot of fights, even what are supposed to be difficult fights. The range on these slings is pretty limited. So it's interesting that or maybe it's the line of sight thing, that I can't shoot through my allies. Is that what's going on? I think so. It's interesting that Dungeons & Dragons treats slings as the crappy, easy to use but low damage, low range weapon, and then bows as like the superior weapons. Now in real life, I've done a little bit of archery. Not much. I'm not particularly good at it. I've just done it a little. Okay, it's not a line of sight thing. It really just is that the range on these slings is terrible. I've done a little bit of archery. I've never used a sling, though. So I don't know this from personal experience. But from what I've read, the way D&D depicts this is the opposite of reality. That slings have much longer range than even the most powerful bow. And that they can hit incredibly hard, but that they're extremely difficult to use and take enormous amounts of training. And that's maybe the primary reason that, well, one of various reasons that bows came into prominent use instead of slings, but it's not because slings weren't effective or aren't effective. Again, I don't know this from personal experience, but from what I've read, slings are actually very deadly weapons, but incredibly hard to master. So D&D just has this completely backwards. Okay, get out of there, Lucia. Don't need that direwolf tearing you apart. It only has 8 hit points, so if any of my characters can ever land a hit on this dang thing... Come on, guys. Our first levelness is showing pretty hard here. Okay, come on. Someone please finish this thing. Thank you, Draven. Okay. We're gonna rest up. Our hit points are so low at first level that taking any amount of damage is dangerous, so I want my party members topped off basically all the time. There it is. Okay. Whew. We want to be prepared for this because the monster inside here is tough. So what I'm going to do is here I really am going to swap out my spells. I'm pretty sure this thing is too strong to be vulnerable to the sleep spell. So sleep is going to be useless to us. And this is legitimately a case where if anything is attacking Draven, it's probably because the rest of the party is dead. So protecting Draven isn't really our priority. So I'm going to memorize Magic Missile for both of my casters, except I forgot the elf doesn't know Magic Missile yet, so never mind about that. But I'm at least going to put it on Draven so that he has at least one surefire hit spell. Okay, let's queue that up. And in an absolute emergency, we can fall back on the lightning wand here too. And I will do so if things get desperate. Because the monsters in here are strong. That's why this is a good early leveling place. They should be worth a lot of experience points. I'm going to do one other thing. I'm actually going to give Lucia the +1 chainmail and put her in the front. Because now her armor class should be extremely good. 1. That is an amazing armor class for a first level character. Because of the combination of the magical chainmail and her maxed out dex score. So I want her in the front to be the one the enemies are attacking. Because she has the best chance of dodging them. Alright. With that set up, let's get in there and let's fight this thing. So what is it that I fear so much? Well, he's not going to be that scary if he just stands there and takes it. It's a Minotaur! Alright, we got him. Minotaurs are mid-level enemies. They're pretty tough for a first-level party to take on, and there's more than one in here. So let's explore this little secret cave and take out as many Minotaurs as we can and hope that we gain lots of experience and that nobody dies. Look at them missing Lucia like crazy. That armor class is really paying off. Also, we got really lucky that she took only 1 damage from that attack. Okay, this is going extremely well. Oh my goodness, a Minotaur Chief? That is terrifying. Kill him, kill him, kill him. Kill him. Nice. And there is some absolutely sick equipment in here. We've got a +1 sword, which is actually redundant at this point because we already had a magical sword, but we can sell it for hopefully a pretty good amount of money. And that +2 chainmail, oh, that is going straight on Dimsdale. And it already is on Dimsdale. So now he should have a really good armor class. So +2 chainmail already is absolutely incredible. We are getting some really nice equipment for being such low-level characters. Oof. This is going so well, I'm a little scared to keep fighting in case I get wiped out. I know this is a little cheap, but I'm going to go back out, rest and save, and then come back in and fight some more. Oh, right, and now that Grelden is 2nd level, he knows magic now. So, actually, I should have looked at his spell list. Okay, so, available spells: Cure Light Wounds, Cause Light Wounds, Detect Magic, Light, Darkness, Protection from Evil, Remove Fear, Cause Fear, and Resist Cold. A lot of these don't have much use. Light and Darkness are potentially very useful because those are spells that can blind enemies. And blind enemies are basically completely helpless, so this can be a hard disable. Those are really good. Aside from that, Cause Light Wounds is a reasonable attack spell. and then there's Cure Light Wounds. Now, funnily enough, at least at low levels, you actually probably don't have a cleric primarily for healing in this game. I know that sounds odd, but actually the amount of healing that clerics get is extremely limited. Like right now, at second level, I can get only a single casting of Cure Light Wounds. And by the official rules, Cure Light Wounds only restores 1d6 plus 1 hit points. So on average, like 4.5, either 4 or 5 hit points per casting. That is not much. That is not an amazing amount of healing. I mean, as first level characters, our hit points are so low that it's not terrible. So I am going to go ahead and memorize that. But honestly, clerics are better for being backup warriors and also for some of their utility magic. As I said, light and darkness can be quite strong as hard disables. And our cleric is going to learn more useful spells as well. So even though I am using him for the little bit of healing that he can do right now, that's not really the primary reason I have him in the party. Alright, let's go ahead and save. Okay, let's get in there and do some more fighting. Alright, Minotaur down, or Minotaur. I've always said Minotaur, but I think it's actually supposed to be pronounced Minotaur. I'm not completely sure, though. Now, ordinarily, in indoor locations, the fighting is actually quite easy because you can kite enemies like crazy. And a level up there for Lucia. So, here's something amusing. In this game, Warriors of the Eternal Sun, whenever a character levels up, they let out a hearty, very manly sounding, "Yeah!" And what's funny about that is that same voice clip is used regardless of whether your character is male or female. So if I were just going by all the default behavior of this game, Lucia just now would have let out this incredibly masculine "Yeah!" from her level up. And that has a lot of comedy value, but for the sake of the flavor and having fun continuing to customize this LP, I'm replacing the default level up sounds with voiceovers for these characters from Chronicles of Nistara. Now, as I was saying, ordinarily, you can kite enemies like crazy in indoor locations, which often makes the indoor fighting in this game actually... Oh, and we have lost Lucia. And did Greldon just gain another level? Wow, 2 level ups for Greldon. Alright, die, Minotaur Lieutenant. We are definitely starting to take casualties, though, aren't we? Okay, and that's another +1 axe. And another suit of +1 chainmail. So we definitely need to get back to town to revive Lucia. I'm not going to keep fighting with my elf down. But this has been pretty successful so far. And as I kept trying to say, but dramatic events kept happening. Indoor fighting in this game is usually pretty easy because you can kite enemies a lot. And if you do it well, the enemy hardly ever gets a chance to attack you. But in that particular cave, it is entirely in close confines and narrow rooms, except for that very first area, which means you can't use that tactic, and you have no choice but to actually duke it out with the enemies properly. Okay, so I'm going to head back to town, get Lucia revived. I guess we can watch this fight against this bear. That could be exciting. I was going to say I'm going to edit out the journey back, but now if we're going to fight a bear, let's go ahead and see it. And let's go ahead and give Draven his magic missile, and we'll open the fight with that. Get magic missile, grizzly bear. Not a lot of damage, but at least it never misses. Like I said, it gets better at 6th level. We still need to gain a level on Dimsdale and Draven. Man, the range on these slings is just terrible. Now that Greldon has gained some levels and has armor to give him good armor class, I should be putting him up in front and not keep him back because he can tank a lot better now. Okay, we've made it back to town. So now I'm going to go get Lucia revived. There were no further encounters on the way. Alright, now one annoying thing about party members getting killed is it messes up your roster and it unequips their gear. So you have a variety of things that you need to fix whenever people get killed. So options, change roster. It's so strange that that's in the options menu. So get Lucia back in the number 2 spot. Keep our fighter in the front, even though he's no longer the tankiest until he gains another level. And then let's get Lucia's gear back on. +1 sword and a sling. Now, we got some nice extra magical gear from the Minotaur Cavern, so let's sell that and see what kind of new equipment is for sale in the shops now that our highest level character is 3rd level. Okay, we don't need both of these axes, so... Ooh, and we can get 1,400 gold for these axes. That is quite good. And sell the extra +1 sword. 2,000. Very, very nice. And we don't need this leather armor anymore. Oh, right. I forgot. This game is excessively realistic with the shops. The weapon shop won't buy armor, and vice versa. It's so amusing. And let's sell this ordinary sword. We have absolutely no use for that. It's just taking up inventory space. I do like how the inventory space in this game is very limited, so you have to be quite thoughtful about what you're carrying around. I actually appreciate that. Okay. And so now that we have a 3rd level character, he is beginning to stock magical equipment. He has a +1 spear. We're not going to buy that. Because I don't believe the cleric can use it. Let's just confirm that. Nope, he can't use that item, so I don't want it. And we already have magical weapons for Dimsdale and Lucia, so we have no real use for that spear. And other than that, let us replace these slings with bows. So get a bow for everybody who can use one, which includes Dimsdale. I wonder if by the official rules, dwarves are supposed to be able to use bows. Or if that was an oversight by the developers. Yeah, dwarves are not supposed to be able to use longbows. So that was definitely an oversight by the developers. I'll take it. As long as Dimsdale can use a bow, he's absolutely going to. And obviously Lucia has to have a bow. I mean, Lucia with her bow in Chronicles of Mystara is just classic, so get rid of that sling. I don't think Greldon can use one. I didn't mean to buy that staff. Damn it. Get rid of that. I wanted the bow, dang it. Okay, he can't use it as I thought, and I don't think the mage can either. No. But the fighter and the elf can, and so now we will sell their slings. and equip their bows. Okay. Swap out some equipment here. Alright, Dimsdale, now you've got a shiny new bow. As does Lucia. And now we need to go sell this armor and see what kind of new armor might be for sale. Away with you, leather armor. We have no use for you. And we obviously have no use for the non-magical leather and chainmail. However, I think a shield on Lucia might do wonders for her armor class, by which I mean it will improve it by 1. But every little bit, right? As you can see in this game. So if we check everybody's armor classes now, Dimsdale's got an armor class of 2. Lucia's is 0, which is unbelievably good for this point in the game. A 4 on Grelden, and of course Draven, unless he casts shield on himself, is still extremely squishy. Just a sponge for taking hits. And the last thing we're going to do is check the magic shop and see if there's any interesting new spells for sale. Really? Maybe that's because my mage hasn't leveled up yet. Maybe that's why there's no new magic for sale yet. Okay, so off screen, I'm going to get a level for Grelden, or excuse me, not Grelden, Dimsdale and Draven, because I want everybody to be at least level 2. And once everyone in my party is at least level 2, I'm going to be ready to finally go to the first story dungeon, the Warren of Beastman Caves in the northwest. And I'm going to check to see if anything interesting comes up for sale once I've gained a level on my mage and my dwarf. And if so, I'll show that. Okay, so as I'm preparing to do a little off-screen leveling, I just discovered something very interesting. Watch who says they're worried about crossing the bridge. Draven and Dimsdale, it changed. It was Lucia and Draven before, if I remember right. It's level-based. What do Draven and Dimsdale have in common? They're the characters who haven't leveled up yet. They're the ones who are still first. And it makes sense that the lowest level characters would be the ones who are worried about crossing the bridge into more dangerous territory. So hey, that's an interesting discovery. It is not charisma based as I thought it might be. Okay, I finally managed to gain a level on Dimsdale, who got an incredible level up with an extra 10 hit points, and a level up on Draven. And on the way back to town, I encountered what looks like a pretty tough encounter of 3 direwolves and 1 hill giants, and I'm going to go ahead and record this encounter so that I can show off some magic in this fight. And of course we're going to open with a ranged attack as per usual protocol. I guess I'll start by trying to kill off the weaker enemies, the direwolves. We could all get killed by this encounter, make no mistake about that. I don't know if any of these guys are weak enough to be put to sleep or not, but I'm going to try it, because if so, that could be pretty clutch. Okay, 1, I'll take it. 1 is pretty good. Oh, also, you might have noticed that Lucia can now memorize 2 sleep spells, due to the fact that she's now 2nd level. Likewise, now that he's 2nd level, Draven gets 2 magic missiles. The southwestern direwolf is asleep, so we don't want to hit him prematurely and wake him up. Let's go ahead and use Cause Serious Wounds. I memorized 1 instance of that and 1 instance of Cure for Grelden. Let's see what we can do with Cause Serious Wounds. Or, excuse me, Cause Light Wounds, not Serious Wounds. No, I mean, you know, that was a thing. It did something. If things get really dicey, I could always bust out the Wand of Lightning too, though I'd rather not. Finally, one direwolf down. I guess let's begin wailing on the Hill Giant. I need to remember to look at how many hit points these guys have in the upper right corner. 13 left. Alright. He misses with his boulder. Ooh. Lucia just took a nasty hit. We'll go ahead and have Greldon heal that. Lucia's first level up was not a good one. She only got 3 hit points. But like I said, I'm not going to save scum my hit point gains unless that situation gets pretty desperate. Alright, nice work. Interesting that the elf, who requires by far the most experience to level up, is actually not having difficulties gaining levels so far. It's because she's been such a killing machine. Alright, Greldon, keep Lucia on her feet. Excellent. Notice how that Western Direwolf is asleep, so it hasn't gotten a turn at all. Just to reiterate, sleep is an excellent spell as long as you're fighting enemies low enough level to be affected by it. And now let's beat these puppies to death, because they're evil and deserve it. They're trying to have us for dinner. It is a dwarf-eat wolf world. Alright, only one guy left. Let's wake him up very rudely with a conk to the head. Conk. Wow! Greldon one-shots him. Nice work, my friend. Alright, so that was a pretty cool fight. I enjoyed it. Now we'll continue back to town. Nothing too exciting, but now that our magic user is 2nd level, the shop now has magic missile for sale. We're going to go ahead and pick that up for Lucia so that she has something besides just sleep. She'll never need shield. I don't think it can improve her armor class anyway, because she wears armor. Shield is just for characters that don't wear armor. And now she'll go ahead and scribe that. Excellent. I'll go ahead and keep the sleep spells on her for now, though, and have Draven keep the magic missile spells, so that the responsibility of who has what is nice and easy to remember, and I'm not mixing and matching my spells too much. Alright, and I confirmed that the weapon and armor shops don't have anything new for sale, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode here. And next time, we'll finally advance to the Beastman Caves, the first real story dungeon, and begin advancing the plot. Thanks as always for watching, everybody. I hope to see you next time, and have a good one.